clear this up. It's not the hugest deal in the world, but the campaign did initially describe the meeting with the African-American pastor as an endorsement.
You certainly are right about that. It's not the hugest deal in the world. I think there are much bigger issues
Absolutely.
going on in the world.
What happened? Why the confusion? Why the confusion?
Well, there was as Pastor Darrell Scott, who was one of the organizers, said today, there was a misstatement. There was a confusion between his group and the Trump campaign in putting out the endorsement. What ended up happening was exactly what we were hoping was going to happen. Many people endorsed Mr. Trump. Others left the meeting with a great feeling of love and a great feeling of mutual respect between the parties. And they are now going back to their respective churches to pray upon their decision.
All right, fair enough. I want to ask you about this claim, Mr. Trump saying he saw thousands and thousands of Muslims in New Jersey cheering as the Twin Towers came down on 9/11. Now, media organizations, left, right, and center, have searched for any footage of this. No one has produced even a still photo. The former New Jersey Attorney General, John Farmer, who was on the 9/11 Commission, says his office heard the same rumor at the time. They investigated it. They found nothing. Farmer says, quote,
How come I'm under the impression that the FBI had detained quite a large number of people? And even over this weekend at a function that I was attending, I had a significant number of people turn around and say it wasn't just taking place in Jersey City. It also took place on Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn.
I just want to ask you, detaining people and terrorist suspects or whatever happened with the FBI,
people don't normally get detained because they're sitting and having an ice cream, at their local ice cream shop. They were clearly doing something which gave enough cause to the FBI within which to detain people.
It's a separate issue, sir. But the basic question is this. How do you explain that there's no evidence, no video evidence for what Mr. Trump claims he saw on television? How do you explain that?
I'm not so sure that that's true, and I've worked for Mr. Trump now for a long time, and I can tell you that Mr. Trump's memory is fantastic, and I've never come across a situation where Mr. Trump has said something that's not accurate.
There are... seriously?
Yes, seriously.
All right. Well, there is no video of this, is all I'm saying. There's no video of this, and you would think that by now somebody would have come forward and said, I mean, you have a lot of supporters out there. You're the Republican frontrunner.
You have a lot of people on Mr. Trump's social media saying, I saw it with my own eyes. But then again, look, here's the problem. The problem is that the accusers, meaning the mainstream media, no matter what Donald Trump says, they're going to try to refute to the best of their ability, and it's just not working. That's really the problem.
You don't think
it's just not working.
You don't think that there are conservative media outlets out there who want Donald Trump to win, who want Donald Trump to be the next president, who would desperately love to put this up on their video, this video on their websites or on TV?
And they've put up other things which corroborate Mr. Trump's statement.
No,
but at the end of the day, you're talking about there are Christians that are getting their heads chopped off. There was a photo of a Christian woman who was killed by having a cross basically rammed through her head. We have our president off somewhere talking about climate change. We have a very serious issue in the United States, according to the FBI, that there are Islamic terrorist groups, ISIS-linked groups in every single state in this country. And we want to talk about whether or not that there were 1,000 people or 2,000 people that were sitting there and cheering. Right?
Or
you have thousands of people on Mr. Trump's social media that attest to it.
All right.
Are you calling all of them liars?
I don't know who you're talking about. You're talking about people on Twitter. But let me move on, because obviously I have gotten as far as I can with this line of questioning. I do want to ask.
And at the end of the day, this line of questioning is really silly. And I mean, Sarah Murray, with even her previous statements, Sarah Murray is exactly one of those accusers that no matter what Donald Trump says, you guys are going to go ahead and take a look at and try to figure out a way how to diminish and demean Mr. Trump.
It's the scrutiny that comes with being a front runner when somebody.
I don't see any other scrutiny being thrown at anybody to the extent that you're throwing it against Donald Trump.
Well,
you're right. Let's move on.
He is the front runner. But I do want to ask you, because I have not asked you yet. In defending his remarks about 9/11 and Muslims in New Jersey, Trump cited this report from 2001 in the Washington Post from Serge Kovaleski. Kovaleski is a reporter. He suffers from a condition that limits movement in his arms. Now, this is Trump at a rally talking about this reporter.
About northern New Jersey draws the prober's eye. written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Oh, maybe that's what I said.
All right. Now let's put up, there's a still photo of Donald Trump from that event and a picture of Mr. Kowalewski. Now, Mr. Trump insists he was not making fun of Kowalewski's disability, and he doesn't remember even meeting Kowalewski, who covered him in the past. But at that event...
Do you know, Jake, how many people do you think have covered Donald Trump in the past? Thousands upon thousands.
How many people with that disability? I would guess one.
Do you really think that Mr. Trump remembers this specific reporter?
He said,
the answer is, Mr. Trump himself said he does not remember.
You said he has a
reporter.
fantastic memory.
And he most certainly does. He sees thousands and thousands of reporters a year.
But
he does not remember this guy. Now, let me say one more
Michael,
thing.
He said
Mr.
this was
Trump
written by a nice reporter. He said it was
Mr.
written by a nice reporter. You got to see this guy.
He was talking about the article until he ended up pulling it back, which he did for whatever the reason that he did. But let me say this.
You got to see this guy, and then he mimics his injury.
Mr. Trump donates millions and millions of dollars each and every year in order to combat disabilities, in order to combat cancer, whether it's children, where he donates millions of dollars a year. Mr. Trump is not the type of individual that's going to make fun of somebody's disability. He wouldn't know this guy prior to this entire nonsense.
But we just saw him do it.
He does not.
We just saw him make fun of his disability.
He was not making fun. He was being gesticulate, which Donald Trump is, and he was basically showing the exasperation of a reporter that's pulling back on a story, exasperation, and basically saying something like, oh, now I don't remember, now I don't remember. Had nothing to do with his disability.
And it just so happened, but first of all, he said, he's a nice guy, and then he said, you got to see this guy, and then he twists his arms to mimic the disability.
He wasn't twisting his arm to mimic anything. And, you know, going back to the guy from the Black Lives Matter, the guy was so far away from the group. Mr. Trump had no idea if it was a male, if it was female, though from the voice he probably could tell. But he was so far away with lights in his eyes. He had no idea the guy was African American. He had no idea that he was part of Black Lives Matter. It's the same issue. It's the accusers will continue to accuse Mr. Trump and not give him a fair chance.
But Michael,
within which, no matter what you tell me, Jake, I disagree with you.
Let me ask you a question.
Mr. Trump would never, ever make fun of somebody's disability.
Okay.
End of story.